2, 3. We're live. Good night, Belizeans at home and abroad. This is the Belizean Affairs Show number 131 for Friday, 19th of April, 2024. As you know, on Fridays we usually have constitutional and legal case law matters and or issues that relates to the law. And so tonight will be one of those uh, case law and or legal matters night, and I'll be the chairman for tonight. We have Mr. Wade sitting as part of our panel for tonight, and we also have Ms. Pitts sitting as a part of our panel tonight. They will introduce themselves formally as I call on them right now. I'd like to go to Ms. Pitts to bless us with a word of prayer. Ms. Pitts, can you identify yourself, ma'am, and say a
Good
short word
night,
before you do your prayer?
good night, Belizeans and friends of Belize at home and abroad. Sharon Pitts here, the prodigal panelist. Pleased to be with you, though. So, dear God, as we gather together and in the closeness and at the speed of prayer that only you, dear God, could allow and
Amen.
has endowed us with, we
Amen.
give thanks for this Friday evening. We thank for the blessings of the past week and unto tomorrow and the hope and prayers of the upcoming week. We thank for
Amen.
every mercy bestowed upon our country, Belize, as you, dear God, continue to watch over our beloved country and our people, dear God, and help the rest of us so that we, dear God, continue in the face of all to look after our people and country. Dear God, bless and protect, dear God, and comfort the family of our very own Mr. Leonard Brackett, dear God, on the loss
Amen.
of their dear child and grandchild and daughter, dear God, and to all the friends and family of that. And I say child, dear God, each of us is a child of God, and especially when it comes to bereavement of one
Amen.
so young, dear God. So may angels' wings continue as you keep her in your embrace.
Amen.
Dear God, thanks for all the blessings. And as we get into the show tonight, dear God, continue to guide us, dear God. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you, Ms.
you.
Pitts. Mr.
Amen.
Wade,
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And
you're
thank
welcome,
you,
sir.
Ms. Pitts. It's always a pleasure to have you in our company. You know, you're about people and nation, and you're always welcome with us. And Mr. Chairman, I will do a reading, and Ms. Pitts, I'll do a reading from Matthew chapter 10, 17 to 25. It says, beware of men, for they will deliver you over to courts and flog you in their synagogues. And you will be dragged before governors and kings for my sake, to bear witness before them and the Gentiles. When they deliver you over, do not be anxious how you are to speak or what you are to say. For what you are to say will be given to you in that hour. For it is not you who speak, but the Spirit of your Father speaking through you. Brother will deliver brother over to death, and father his child, and children will rise against parents and have them put to death. And you will be hated by all for my name's sake. But the one who endures the end will be saved. When they persecute you in one tongue, flee to the next. For truly I say to you, you will not have gone through all the towns of Israel before the Son of Man comes. A disciple is above his master. It is enough for the disciple to be like his teacher, and the servant like his master. It will have called, if they have called the master of the house Jezebel, how much more will they malign those of this household? So I have no fear in them, for nothing is covered that will not be revealed, or hidden that will not be known. That's my reading from Matthew 10 1 to 25. Back to you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Uh, yes, sir. Mr. Wade, do
Yes,
you
sir.
have uh, a short comment for about a minute? Just to give me about a minute. Really?
I will pass that minute to Miss Spitz.
Yes, but I don't want to go too long though because I want to
No,
keep.
no, no.
But I just
I'll
want.
pass that
I
minute
was
to
in the
Miss
middle of
Spitz.
doing something. I just want to
Yes,
finish it off.
yes. Go ahead, huh? Go ahead.
Go
Go ahead,
ahead.
Miss Spitz. You want to say something, Miss Spitz,
Sorry,
before?
I wasn't hearing too well. I just Mr. Brackett's voice went rather low.
Okay. Yeah, you want to say something for about a minute, so
Oh,
he
I see.
queue up something.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think last time I wanted to mention and observe something that is crucial for Belize. With respect to the seatbelt law and the traffic regulations, it seems to me, yes, the people concerned with traffic management and the authorities concerned to impose the law. And to my mind, they shouldn't be about trying to implicate people or have people self implicate. In my respectful opinion, what you have is that, and I borrow this from environmental law, you find that sometimes the better approach is the compliance-based approach rather than sanction. Now it seems to me you don't have to be regulated to put on your seatbelt, but definitely we have to get into that as a habit and second nature to save lives and so on. But we have old vehicles which don't have, we have buses which don't have, so it might be that the law of unintended consequences, unless it's a plan, that you'll find that the older buses and so on, the bus runners, the private operators will may find that the bread get boxed out of their mouth, right? The other, but more importantly, right, the matter of it, if to my mind you want to bring it across as not just being revenue driven, then it must be that there could have been a phasing in period and a warning period and a reminder period. What I find is difficult to accept is that there's this big move to traffic management and safety and imposition of that. But we see from time to time, people haven't been taught or don't know to use the roundabouts, it seems. We see almost every day bicycles, cars, and worse than anything else, the worst, motorcycles passing on the inside, and it has become so regular that even on bridges they pass, right? And they pass on curbs on the inside. It creates a danger because obviously we drive on the right-hand side, so they should pass on the left-hand side, and they should not try to overtake a vehicle on a curve or on a bridge approach or so, or
I'm ready.
go
I'm
in
ready.
descent.
Ready now.
They
I'm ready now to
Yes,
kick off the
one other
program.
thing, please, and I think this
Uh,
is the most crucial um, failure. But before I get to that, We have these, what you call these container trucks, which you have sometimes two of them. I think Dr. Greenwich did a thesis, Egbert Greenwich, with respect to how the roads and truck contribute to deaths and casualties, right? The point, though, is that these trailers in tandem, the commercial entity might have one driver and one truck hauling the container, but these are a serious traffic risk and hazard for the road. Then you have the lack of escort vehicles when people are moving uh, certain, sometimes you see tractors on certain vehicles and you don't have an escort vehicle or lighting or warning. You
Uh,
have construction works, engineered works, contracted
Ms.
works,
Smith,
which are government, which you don't
uh,
have proper
Sharon,
traffic markers. And I'll finish
Sharon,
with this, Mr. Brackett, and
Mhm.
he'll
uh,
whatever time.
yes, sir.
Children, sometimes I've seen uniformed policemen with two children on motorbikes here in Belize City and elsewhere in the country. You have parents, and it's all because I feel that the government and regulatory authorities look the other way, because the harsh reality is that the price of gas is such that that the domino effect. God is helping and protecting those children,
Thank
but we need to call it out. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Ms. Smith, for your
Well
commentary.
said there, Miss Spitz. Thank you
Uh,
for that. Yeah.
I'd like to kick off tonight constitutional and case law, as well as abrogation of rights. Tonight's program will deal with this abrogation, suppression of rights, and abuse of power by those to whom we entrust our powers. I would like to go to the Constitution of Belize, Cap 4, Section 2, Part 2, Section 7, and it reads as this: no person shall be subjected to torture or to inhumane or degrading punishment or other such treatment. No person shall be held in slavery or servitude. That's Section 8. And we also have Section 611. Now, let me go, before I go to Section 611, let me go to Section 6. There's another part here that I need to read quickly. Section 6.1. All persons are equal before the law and are entitled without any discrimination to the equal protection of the law. If any person, Section 6, subsection 2, if any person is charged with a criminal offense, then, unless the charge is withdrawn, the case shall be afforded a fair hearing within a reasonable time by an independent and impartial court established by law. It didn't say by the commissioner, did it? I'll read that last part for emphasis. In fact, I'll read the whole thing. If any person is charged with a criminal offense, then, unless the charge is withdrawn, the case shall be afforded a fair hearing within a reasonable time by an independent and impartial court established by law, not by the commissioner and or by the police minister. There's a reason why I'm reading these things, because what I'm about to elaborate on afterwards will have to do with these. Every person who is charged with a criminal offense shall be presumed to be innocent until he is proven or has pleaded guilty. That's what the Constitution says, not what the police minister says, that if people don't want to own up to the crime that they are alleged to have committed, that they have to prove their innocence. And to say the least, the gentleman is a lawyer as well. So when these guys are talking craziness out of the back of their head, it's not because they don't know or have the knowledge inside of their head. It's because they're arbitrarily and capriciously and deliberately, maliciously, as the legal tenets would say, committing crimes aforethought. In other words, they think about these crimes before they commit them, and they commit them despite knowing that they're not supposed to be committing these crimes. I'll leave a little bit of that extra wording and continue to read this part here. Every person who is charged with a criminal offense, paragraph A, shall be presumed to be innocent until he is proven or has pleaded guilty. Paragraph B, that shall be informed as soon as reasonable, practicable, in a language that he understands, of the nature and particular of the offense charged. C, shall be given adequate time and facilities for the preparation of his defense. D, shall be permitted to defend himself before the court in person or at his own expense by a legal practitioner of his own choice. E, shall be afforded facilities to examine in person or by his legal representative the witnesses called by the prosecution before the court, and to obtain their attendance and carry out the examination of witnesses to testify on his behalf before the court on the same condition as those applying to witness called by the prosecution. And F, paragraph F, the last paragraph in that series, shall be permitted to have without payment the assistance of an interpreter if he cannot understand the language used at trial. I'll go then now to section 10, which is the one I was about to read earlier. Nothing contained or done under the authority of any law shall be held to be inconsistent with or in contravention of such law. Subsection 3A of this section, which I just read before, to the extent that the law in question imposes upon any person charged with a criminal offense the burden of proving particular facts. In other words, it is not the person that is accused that has to prove. As a stupid I gotta back up. As I had mentioned earlier, that somebody had said, let's leave it at that, okay? And that the person that is accused is not supposed to be proving his guilt. He's supposed to be assumed to be innocent until he is proven by virtue of whether it's a state or whoever is bringing the cause against him, for them to prove the guilt of that person. Which is why sometimes you have cases that are thrown out of court, and or sometimes you have cases where the judge determines that if a person is beaten and the statement that they give is contravening his constitutional rights, the case cannot go forward. the case can be kicked out by the judge. That's the responsibility of the judge as well as the lawyer to bring to the attention of the court for the records so that that person does not have to be victimized twice. Even though they may have committed a crime, if they are beaten up by the police and done a number of different things, that case can still be lost because of technicality. We have treaties, international treaties, in some instances that overrides our local law, which is why when you sign these treaties, you got to be careful that your laws are consistent and the treaty is consistent with your constitution. Otherwise, you got to change your constitution. I see Greg in the background. Just want to say good evening, Greg. Welcome to the show, sir. And you have a word that you'd like to say before I move on?
Good night, Mr. Chairman, and good night to the people at home and abroad.
Good night, sir.
Thanks for tuning in to this 131st episode of Belizean Affairs. I see I have a full panelist sitting with me virtually. Good night, Attorney at Law, Mr. Wade, and you yourself, my good cousin, Mr. Brackett.
Good night,
sir. Turn it back to you.
Thank you very much. I want to talk about something that happened recently in Belize, which was in the news tonight. And this issue is pertaining to a young lady who the police, they went and picked up, took her to the station, and then without her getting a chance to get her mom or call her mother, they turn around and they send her up for SOE. When in fact, the SOE does not have it stipulated any such condition that people can be picked up arbitrarily and capriciously and be victimized. Now, it so happened that this young lady is family to somebody that the police are interested in finding out that person's whereabouts. So they're going to break this young lady's constitutional right and take her and threaten her and send her up to Hattieville under false pretext. They're planning to hold her, victimize her, create a police record for her that may not be expunged unless she can get a lawyer to work on her present situation, get her relieved, and then demand expunging of that bogus record. No way did the police commissioner or the minister of police or the prime minister stipulated that this bogus SOE that we are complaining about constantly was intending to harm anyone else other than the people that they say were supposed to be known active gang members, which being a member of a gang, again, is a violation of our constitution that they cannot stop you from doing. They can catch you in the act of committing a crime and prosecute you, but they have no right to just go and arrest you because you belong to a gang that maybe they figure has something to do with criminal activity. They got to prove their case. They just can't penalize you and brutalize you and come in your house and beat down your door and beat up your family members and do all kind of craziness because they don't want to perform as a legal police entity. As the established legal police force in the country, they are already empowered to carry on their police work legally without having to commit crimes under the color of law. Greg, I need to ask, would you have any snippets from tonight's news? Is that too early for you on that particular point?
No, it isn't, sir. Let me go ahead and do it.
I'm not hearing you well.
Sorry, were you asking me, Mr. Brackett?
No, Gregory.
Oh, Greg, sorry. I was not hearing you clearly, Mr. Brackett.
I asked the police officer, why is my daughter detained? He said, your daughter is detained under PI murder. I asked who my daughter murdered. He no answer. I said, okay, then I come home back. Okay? Now, why would you pick up my daughter and tell her if she don't give up her brother, you are saying she for SOE? First thing, that's her constitutional right they're violating. Because she no commit no crime. My son is allegedly wanted for a murder. I don't know where he there, and that's not my problem at this point. That's the police job to find my son and pick him up. State of emergency start March.
26.
I'm 100% sure they don't have every person that they wanted for that state. Nobody's sister went up for state of emergency that they're looking for. The one that they don't find. But my daughter went up for state of emergency.
Do you think your daughter is being basically held hostage until Ellis turns himself in?
That's right. To me, this is personal. Because, man, why they call SOE? Because of the amount of murder that is happening in Belize, right?
Yeah.
That's the reason why they call SOE?
Yep.
Have you seen any woman gone up for SOE under the state of emergency? The amount of murders that...
Thank you very much, Greg. I'm really besides myself right now, okay? And just want to ask that if I fall off, the edge tonight, I'm asking for a little forgiveness ahead of time or a little pardon ahead of time. You shouldn't ask forgiveness for the crime that you won't commit, because you shouldn't be committing the crime in the first place. But tonight I might end up committing some crimes. These idiots that we have controlling all powers of governance are taking us all for a bunch of fools. Worse than that, they're taking advantage of us with the powers that we invested in them, that they're supposed to be using, especially as, let's say in the instance of the police, to do police work, decent police work, not criminal police work. We have the case where this senior police officer was pointing guns at the people in face. They got at the people in house. They look for whoever they want, realize that they never had the right people or they never find the right person. And because the young lady was complaining about them pointing gun in her face, put the gun in her holster and go and rough up the young lady, choke her, slam her down the ground, kick her in her side. What kind of police force do we have running our country or policing our country? And then the jackass commissioner will come to the TV and tell us, bold facedly, he don't know nothing about their activities there. He don't know nothing about no misbehavior by police officers them. As if that was the only instance or incident. As if we don't actually have hundreds and hundreds of incidents that these criminal elements under the guise of a police force, duly established and empowered with the power of policing our country, are acting like a bunch of mobsters and gangs themselves, and so-called trying to arrest gang members because they can't control the gang activities in the country. It's not because they really can't. They don't want to. They are invested with the power of policing to go and pick up anybody who is accused of a crime and try to prosecute them and send them to jail or whatever consequence they have to suffer. But they are not interested in doing their job. They're interested in collecting their salary dutifully every payday while going out there and terrorizing the community themselves. How can the Minister of Police claim that they have to use the SOE and the Prime Minister himself get the ass up there on the TV with Jules Vasquez and declare that they have to put the SOE in place because these black people on South Side are out of control, and that's the only way they could control that part of the society with bogus, illegal SOEs, and then hiding the police activities behind the SOEs them as if they were actually legal, and empower themselves with additional powers that they're not entitled to use when an SOE is not in place. Not only that, then how we BDF and half of the borderline and have with borderline they get infiltrated in massive numbers of people, outnumbering our one population as if that is not a national security, and have these gentlemen running around with them big guns in at the people in face and intimidate and terrorize people and hold people hostage so that the police could beat them down with nightstick and do all kind of illegal activities when the police is not empowered to be judge, jury, and executioner in one. And unless people are resisting the arrest, they should not go in the back of the pickup truck when they have the people sitting down with baseball bat. They got beat down by the people. Especially if they have them already in at the pickup truck and also handcuffed. That's a level of brutality and a level of deviousness and evil that comes from the top to the bottom. And it's been aided and abetted, which is why I said in the last program and the program before, Mr. Chester, the Prime Minister, Minister of Police, and a bunch of them need to be arrested. I'll leave that right now because I'm monopolizing the time and we have four tonight. I'd like to turn out Mr. Wade for a second. You have a comment on what I was reading before, sir?
You're talking. I have a little something in the background there that
Mr. Wade.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Yes. Mr. Chairman, thank you. And again, it's a pleasure to be in your company, Greg. Welcome to the show again.
Thank you.
And I always say, it's a pleasure to have you, Ms. Spitz. And this is my take on that. What you was talking about there, Leonard, and what Greg queued up there. I don't see that, this government, right, have any intention. I want to solve the crime situation, right? I mean, they say they have the crime situation under control. And like I have said previously, this is not the last state of emergency. In the next 3 months from now, they will come with another state of emergency. So it's, I've said it before, it's not the last, it's not the first, and it's not going to be the last, right? What gets me is that our leader of this nation, the Prime Minister, John Resenyuk, like you said, went on national TV the other day and says, he mentioned the word the best. That's the best they can do, right? So when they sit around the table, like I say again, with maybe himself and the police minister and the commissioner of police and whoever, that little group, that minion there, and that's the best they could come up with another state of emergency. Like I say, the man, the gentleman then around that table and whoever else around that table who come up with the best. They don't take into consideration the people that are being affected, right? The gravity and the seriousness of what is going on. And like I say again, they claim to say that they know who these people are.
Deal
right?
with them.
Who they commit this? They go and find a notorious gang leader on a island out there, right? We yet to hear what's really going on with that. We want to hear from him, right? Because I'm pretty sure that he has a lot to tell this country, right? About his affiliation, about his actions, and about those guns and drugs that was found out there, right? Mm-hmm. But again, maybe you would never hear because, because of who are involved or who he knows,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like I say again, they say that they know these people. Why are they terrorizing continuously, terrorizing the citizens of Belize City or whoever visiting the city on a continuous basis, right? To me, as an ex-policeman, they're not doing enough, right? And what you say, Leonard, the treatment that they're and the actions of their and their behavior towards the people that they get in contact with is not germane. It's not right, right? So who encourages people to do this to our people? Who encourages it, right? That's my thing. Don't they see that it's wrong? It's wrong for the way they are behaving towards our people, sometimes innocently or not innocent. But what I'm saying is that, these guys, man, they got to be ashamed of themselves, and I call for, a little betterment because I know better could be had. They could do better, right? That word that he used, the best that they could come up with, that's bullcrap for a leader, right, of this nation, right? So I say this to say that, I am very upset, right, to see from top to bottom how they are behaving towards our very own people, right? That who not deserve to get that kind of treatment. And at the end of the day, they will put them in a situation that they will have to go and look for an attorney with money they do not have. They will have to put up their house or sell whatever assets they have to clear their innocence, right? Which is so wrong, right? And like I say, Mr. Leaders, uno say from our own mouth, not from Roody Wade mouth, and I call uno out, uno know these people, go and pick them up and stop the terrorized innocent people. Back to you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Mr. Wade. I see we have our special guest, Mr. Morrison, Gregory Morrison, on the show.
Welcome,
I just want
sir.
to give him an opportunity to identify himself, and then we'll go to Ms. Sharon Pitts. Sharon?
Yes, sir.
As soon as Mr. Morrison identifies himself and he turns over back the show, I'd like for you to continue after. You can
Yes, sir.
start putting your thoughts together. What you want to. Go ahead, Mr. Morrison. I'm sorry about that.
Yeah, no problem. Good evening.
Welcome
evening.
again.
Good evening, Miss Sharon, and good evening,
Evening, Mr. Greg.
and Mr. Wade. It's a pleasure being here.
Morrison.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the invite.
You're welcome, sir.
Thank you. Good evening.
Sharon?
Yes, it's interesting, Mr. Brackett, and I have the text before me, but you made a reference to a part of the Constitution which has to do with protection from torture, inhumane and degrading punishment, or such other treatment. Mr. Brackett, Mr. Ada Brackett, Mr. Morrison, and Mr. Wade, people of Belize, what I am seeing is happening in Belize, no? Is that Belize is being pushed over onto, it's like hanging on the edge or already on a slippery slope, and our people, our institution of state, our system of law is founded on the rule of law, which came out of 1,000 years recently, and it has some characteristics which we hold dear, and it is wrapped up in the common law and the constitutional law and the guarantees and so on. It's a very thing that is under attack. So you see an experiment with the Constitution, and I'm telling people, those people should leave our Constitution alone. So you see this exercise and experiment going, and they keep blaming the Constitution, when any constitution and our system, world class, is only as good as the people who protect, and the government, which should, the Constitution implores policies of state which give effect to it. I say that because it sounds obvious, but the things that are being mentioned and the things that people are seeing has to do with what is, where our country is being lambasted with different things which have to do with a police state. And it must be called out. Mr. Brackett, you mentioned certain things, and with respect to anybody who is hauled up and dealt with a certain way, I want to offer one thing, because I want to say certain things, and confronts people that can't have access to legal recourse, attorney service, but this country only as good as, the biblical, whatsoever you do to the least of my brothers, and our Constitution guarantees that presumption of innocence. There's a remedy that is not used enough, and it's called a habeas corpus, where without all the formalities and the time and so on, a writ of habeas corpus, it's simply put from Latin to English, have the body. Appearance can be made, or a judge of the High Court, formerly the Supreme Court, attention could be caught to have the body of the person before the court.
Right.
With respect to another thing, there was a situation the other day where, and I don't even like to give voice to it because certain things should not be happening in Belize, and it's more than disquieting, where somebody apparently was shot and ambulance did not reach. Policemen were looking on, and I maintain that the Belize we have must protect people. And Mr. Brackett, even when you mention that part of protection from inhumane treatment constitutionally, presumption of innocence, you know how it all ties back in? And it's a dignity of the person. It's even a protection of the standard by and the society. We can get such that there is official indifference. And I will say this and say it loud and clear. No comprehensive study needs to be conducted by any functionary of police or functionary of state or functionary of government as to who must show up. When anybody is injured, life is to be saved, and the first responders must be, obviously, ambulance. But again, resources of state in the form of police officers, uniformed or otherwise. The tradition of a constitutional country and the rule of law is that you don't have, under the guise of indifference or a hurry come up half-baked non-policy, because I don't even want to repeat certain things, lest it be, certain things must not. We have a problem that believes, sometimes we repeat that thing when people make up on the spot, right? And the delay tactics and the disregard and so on. I don't have a word, then I don't have a word to say for it, no? It just must not be something that we as a country and a people ever let it be other than an affront to our sensibilities as law-abiding people under a constitutional country which has a rule of law as central feature and something that we will not allow anybody, any party, any entity, any government any political party to feel that they can, with impunity and talking both sides of their tongues, to pretend that, you know what, life and liberty is not sacrosanct. It's not something that is to be, I don't know. Mr. Brackett, people of Belize, there's a time, you know what, when the less said is the best said. It is written large. Belize is in a situation. It's not just a threat. We see the features of police state and danger call for rescue. I always say,
so true on that.
Another thing I want to say, one little example I want to give, one big one, and I see it more and more. One of the constitutional rights, not to incriminate oneself, presumption of innocence, silence, right to remain silent. You know what the police and they don't know and have been doing? And they say up to today and last week and months before and right in between. When somebody would have already said, you know what, I have my right to remain silent, then go through a motion, they have some forms they look like, and they were, okay, we administer, and we then write it down, time and so on, right? To try cover them back, right? And we give the person a phone call to attorney. You know what they do? And I've been told as an attorney by a policewoman one time from Queen Street. I attended the station 5:15 or 5:30 a.m. on Saturday morning. The person detained said certain things and he would not give any statement or further statement. I informed the OC, I informed the investigating officer and somebody else. Another counsel came and police right in front of me, and I was a senior one, although I looked younger. And the other counsel was, well, okay, maybe you could give one. I said, but the man's instructions are so and so. The counsel relented. That was the Sunday morning. I get one call, the police, they look for text statement. I call the officer and she was saying, well, you know what? I am conducting an interview and the commissioner of police said that we can conduct. I said, no, no, no. As an attorney, I am reminding you of the constitutional. Oh, but she's going to conduct it. Well, you know what? Something tell me, not even tell she I dep on the way to police station. So foot what you make for. The thing is, they had JP, and I was told again, well, a JP is there, and I had my client there, and I went in, and I said, you know what? And I repeated in front of the client, and I said to the JP, you know what? You might be here for something, but my client has indicated, so you might want to stop writing. Then the police officer, well, they just want to take from him that he say yes or no to that. I said my client's presumption of innocence and his constitutional right, as I have advised him, they know his name, they know his date of birth, his age, where he live. They no need to know anything else. I gave a client a card yesterday at Ladyville Police Station. I said, because I understand now how police behave. Interview, you have no right to interview or to question. At the station last week, I dealt with in Belize City, our clients again, and I explained certain things. The police in front of me when they play some shenanigans. Oh, we want to know from your client so and so. I said, give me a minute with him. Of course, we were back in seconds, right? I said, my client said that he will not answer any questions because you know what the police were telling me? They made try triple bank. I said, better Jankono dance and that means to make a mockery from our culture and trick people. They just want to ask him some questions. And one who was in plane, the three of them look like CIB. Oh, two female and a male. Oh, it's simply yes or no. You know what? It was no. The policeman may call me today identified himself from Ladyville Station. And he said, oh, and he sounded like him in a condescend. The phone connection never so good. So I said, no, my client will not give an interview, his constitutional rights. Well, he just want to go through procedure and he have to do his job as a police and he has to get it done. This was a wrong 2 because he would be off as 5. I said I made it clear yesterday. Well, he wasn't at the police station yesterday. I left message, of course, for the OC and I was clear to the police yesterday. I advised my client, give them a card, just say, if they ask you anything, just remain silent and give them a card. I know how they behave. This is my young man attend not just one church, but Adventist and Pentecostal, right? And you know what? I saw the game again and I said to him, just be patient, wait out. I got an update that he was released by the person who asked me to attend to him, but these things shouldn't be happening. They shouldn't be happening. So the new guys now is interview. So torture, that was another thing, Mr. Brackett. Torture could be pretending you are free somebody. And when they walk out a police station just before the 48 hours end, or at the time, you haul them back in for something.
Thank you very much, Ms. Pitts, for lucid presentation as well as your personal experience on the spot in terms of these irregularities by our police departments. Some of it I'll chalk up to them being ignorant of what the law is, and other parts I'll chalk up to them being outright.
And maybe not tonight, Mr. Brackett, but I want to share with Belizeans a matter in the matter of baby D, and that will run through some of the...
Okay.
But maybe not now it's good, but I'm saying now it comes to mind and it's a case.
We have 3 days next week, so we can allot some time for that purpose.
Remind me, please.
And,
I will, Miss Pitts. I will.
Some of these people that we have in our system, from the police officers to the police commissioner and his underlings and the police, even the prime minister, like I said, I mean, why did he have to get himself so worked up to the point of besmirching people out there, the common man on the street? Somebody saying when they will vote for the man, and he party. To the point where he won't derogate those people's right under his authority because he's our prime minister. Did he forget, as I asked him in the last show, how he got fed, taken care of as a young man, and was provided for so adequately by his own parents? Did he not believe that the Constitution served the purpose for his parents as well as for these as well as these other people? But you see, it doesn't affect him now because he's sitting pretty. The fact is that you have to abide by the law. We are a country of laws. And the police officers have to respect the presence of an attorney to deal with their clients. I just read it out of the Constitution just now. And it's not like because I read it out of the Constitution, it should have any more effect. It should have had the effect it deserved to have from the very get-go. Police officers who have to take information have to be notified and given the instructions that they cannot demand that people speak when they choose not to speak. And they cannot be sitting there trying to disrespect the attorneys then when they show up on behalf of their client. The Constitution demands that that be taken care of in a different way. But these guys, anyhow, I think I'm elaborating ahead of time. I need to let the other individuals on the panel weigh in. Greg, I'll ask Mr. Gregory Morrison to weigh in for us. And then maybe what you could do, Greg, for me, as soon as Mr. Morrison finished, replay back the same cut that you played earlier, the first one. Just replay it back before you make a comment on it or on whatever is it that we're all commenting on right now, no? Is that all right? Can you set that up?
Go ahead,
Greg?
sir.
Okay,
Yes,
so
go ahead, sir.
thank you. Thank you very much. Mr. Morrison, I yield the
Yes.
floor, sir.
I totally understand what Ms. Spitz was saying, that the Constitution, um, it's there, but what it relies on is the goodwill of the people that are responsible there to implement it. And when they fail to do that, that's where everything is. We don't need a new constitution. We just need to have proper conducting of the order and respect for the constitution by all the parties, and
Right.
particularly those that are responsible for upholding the Constitution.
Amen to that.
But there's something I wanted to find out, Ms. Pitts. You mentioned it just now about the changing the court from the Supreme Court to the High Court, and I know that was done recently. But how does that affect anything constitutionally within the country? And if you could just tell me a little bit of why that change was necessary.
I'll say for the most part, it was a matter of what we would say nomenclature, name change, and there had to be a statute so that you must now say the reference or cite in the High Court of Belize. Remember one time in our history, we used to call Supreme Court, Grand Court, and so on, right?
Because
And then
had
we
the
have the
Court.
Supreme Court. The full name is was or is, and I still say the Supreme Court of Judicature. So you would still cite that for matters already gone. But to my mind, it's a name change and as well some administrative policies. And then the Court of Appeal. Definitely there, and I would just want to say it with care. So, Mr. Morrison, I will have the references and share it very carefully next time, not so that have the Court of Appeal and administratively with respect to the judicial officers, right? You have some tweaking of the functioning and so on, but still you used to refer, for example, to we have our system. You have the stipendiary magistrates, or which is unique to Belize in the Caribbean, right? So you had that, and my father did his thesis on the Belize magisterial system. So we have the districts court.
Mhm.
Within that, we have the alcalde jurisdiction, but it's limited to $25 and certain things. I think they must understand that. So in Belize, we have our summary courts are what we call creatures of statute, right?
Okay.
And we have the district court, or we'd say the summary jurisdiction court, so that the district court, all its jurisdiction has to be prescribed. So we say statutory. So you'd see, and I had to try and explain respectfully before a person who was in the legal field, but from the Caribbean, but not of Belize. And I think the person was getting mixed up.
Yeah.
So you have that. And then one example would be you have like the section 3, where the court, it states clearly that the court would not have jurisdiction with respect to certain matters which could give rise to interest in hereditaments or land, right? But then the Supreme Court had adjudged that the court could still go into the inquiry and then so it has its limitations. The family court was a special court. That was that's one of Mr. Honorable Philip Golson's legacy. So you had the family court, and then it has it's still a magistrates court level, but certain things like injunction and protection order, which were just a purview of the Supreme Court, were afforded to the family court, right? So that like if a man or woman is under domestic violence, so it can enjoin against that and certain other things, matters, right? Then the Supreme Court of Judicature is what we call a court of original jurisdiction. And it's also the appellate court from the lower court. So as you go into the court hierarchy upwards, the Supreme Court. Now, the magistrates court's jurisdiction, apart from the offenses, some petty misdemeanors, and what we call hybrid offenses, some which are would be instituted by information and complaint, describing the alleged offense, and then some would be able to are listed in schedules as what we would call hybrid, so that some would be by indictment or triable at the instance of the police or the DPP. They could go to indictment. It means then that if they elect to go without indictment, the charge would be read and then the person enters the plea. It's very important because once you've entered the plea, then you have ultra for acquit or convict and law against what you would call in the US double jeopardy, colloquially. So then you have as well a limitation on the ability of the magistrate to sentence. I did a silver appeal in the Supreme Court where I didn't do the first instance, but the young man was sentenced to a certain time. And when I looked at it for appeal purposes, I managed to say that there was an error in law because the magistrate would have had to, it would have been through the prosecution, they would have had to seek permission or approval from the Supreme Court to impose the higher sentence. The DPP agreed with me, and that was before the Supreme Court in holding in Belmopan. Now with the High Court, original jurisdiction means that you can go before the court for certain things. Writs of habeas corpus to have the body. The magistrate's court jurisdiction was increased from claims of $5,000 in a civil suit to I think $20,000, right? The cost of court is limited to $5 Belize, or $5 or $4, which is good because I had somebody the other day, a foreign call company trying to get $9,000 costs in family court, and I had to fight that tooth and nail and prevail a certain way. But I think it was in order that they would shield against an appeal to the Supreme Court, which I was quite prepared to do. So then you have the higher court. I'll finish quickly. Okay. So the Supreme Court is a court of original jurisdiction. So certain things like dissolution of marriage and injunctions and land matters, libel, defamation, a whole anywhere that you would see, judicial review of legislation, constitutional matters, and so on, right? Having the body of the person. So the Supreme Court is there across the board. Then you have the Court of Appeal. Now the Supreme Court is the appellate court for the lower court, right? Mm-hmm. And the Court of Appeal, as we call it, is the appellate court for the Supreme Court, right? And right. Still, sometimes the Court of Appeal, when somebody appeals to that court, they might still send back the matter for the lower court to hear, or the Court of Appeal might supersede. Then we had the Judicial Committee of the Privy Council as our final Court of Appeal, and that was in our law and in our highest law, the Constitution. You had some people saying, well, the link from this relic of colonialism. And I think that politicians on both sides were saying to the good people of Belize, it's because of the Privy Council that we're not hanging. And you know what? Once we hang them high, the problem with crime would be solved. There were some of us who were saying the Privy Council is not out there and not closer and not au fait and in touch, and that to say hanging, but that was what they put to feed our people and to say, yes, the limit. Now, there were some of us who feel too, and I still feel, you will look at who sponsors these laws. Ironically, Vibes Cartel, a very famous case, is before the Privy Council. The Caribbean law brothers and sisters from the old school in the Caribbean. I think Trinidad, which has the seat of the court, Belize, and a couple others went to the Court of Justice, the CCJ, as the appellate court. Jamaica, which is very nationalistic. It seems that some people feel that, you know what, within their nationalism, and they have a very vibrant, law society, law precedent, and they feed the rest of us in the Caribbean, right? But we are second to none, of course, Belize, right? And we are sovereign, but Belize chose to go. Now, the fallacy or the argument, which was, you know what, they will hang, we still are not hanging people, and maybe for good reason. The thing is that, so sorry, I went on and on, Mr. Morrison, but to deal with the jurisdiction and the nomenclature and so on, you have to understand the root of these. One of the things is, for example, as law students, we would have been told you had Chancery Division, right? And you had the Supreme Court. And one of our things in equity was that equity came out of Chancery from the King's Feet, because the Chancellor, you would go for a remedy. And it was said that the remedy might change or be equal to vary with the length of the King's Feet, just like they would talk about palm tree justice and so on, right? So that there was Lord Cairns Act, and it was said that the courts were fused. So the courts of Chancery gave equitable relief. So if you want equity where the strict law construed will not grant a relief, so you have courts of equity, right? So the Supreme Court of Belize is a court of equity, and it comes out of our common law from the 1,000-year history and growth. So we would say that it is fused. So equity, the things like habeas corpus and all the things which afford these rights are remedies of equity, and the Supreme Court's original jurisdiction, conscience, would allow us to always run to the Supreme Court, no name the High Court.
Thank you very much, Sharon.
No, I want to ask one point more on that, because I wanted to find out now.
I'll yield back the floor to you. Just a second. That is a very good presentation, Sharon, especially for those of us who are involved with these type of issues. But it's very educational also for the general public to have heard what you had to say just now in that regards, because a lot of people don't understand.
Thank you.
The mechanics behind that stuff. Please proceed, Mr. Morrison. Sorry about that.
I like getting legal advice for free, so that's why I'm asking. But
you know what? I have.
But we have a limit on the show, so we can. I know. We have other things.
What I want.
I think Mr. Greg Morrison. It is to illustrate, right, for Belizean people, if they don't understand. I go to these presentations on the well, I went to 2. But really and truly, I will not be there. But anybody will want to call me. And I was saying and advising that we should be in session. The Constitution has a lot of conventions, but you see, the thing is, you hear presentations within 2 hours, right? And question and answers and introductory speech. But really and truly, with respect to your Constitution, you can't discuss Constitution without going into the roots. So the wickedness, the evil that is being perpetrated is to suggest to people, you know what? You all weren't a part of this Constitution, so get your own Constitution. Before any lawyer should be discussing with the public anything about law with the Constitution, right? At a presentation like that. And I challenge my brothers and sisters in law. Go to the root so that people understand what came out of 1,000 years of Constitution. Then they will understand what is at risk, what is at stake, and why you're not going to pull that thread and unravel it. The one serious matter, you know what? People have died for it, and people prepared to dead for it again. And when somebody out there on the street, they bleed to death, that because they're constitutional protection, freedom from inhumane treatment is being disregarded on camera in the face of you. And people who know the law from, you don't have to know the law to know that, because you know what? That are the biblical law be attitudes. The good Samaritan,
thank you very much,
but the man who is uniformed officers of Belize, people who are paid by country, run somebody wrong and take long for carrying in a hospital. Police for carry people at hospital. And then our failed state you have when you don't have ambulance to reach on time, or they know they call the fire truck, first responders, all of them for go same time. And about police for pronounce nobody dead, carry the person to hospital. Medical doctors and personnel must come. Every life vital. Every life. You can't have, I don't want to.
Thank you very much.
I would invite anybody who wants to take a constitutional case. There are people out there who would do that on behalf of the country of Belize, because every citizen's rights only as good as how you protect the least of the person out there. Indifference is sometimes the guise for, and we don't need any comprehensive study.
Sharon, we need a time out for right now, please. Mr. Morrison, please take 30 seconds and wrap up what yours.
Okay. Well, what I was
move on to the next question.
What I was wondering on is just probably looking at the Constitution and looking at the Supreme Court or High Court and their responsibility in interpreting the Constitution, because it seems to me that our Supreme Court or High Court, however we want to define it or its name now, doesn't play an active role in making ruling and interpretation of our Constitution. And I was just wondering who then is responsible to do it.
I respectfully disagree with you, Mr. Morrison.
Okay.
The Supreme Court is as active as we want it to be. I just illustrated habeas corpus, which is a remedy. You don't even need to have a long written script. An attorney before the court can invoke that. The courts have, but as officers of the court and people before the court, we get that protection. I want to say something, right? We are not people who like go to court, right? But the courts respectfully, and when the courts pronounce, they are the guardians of the Constitution. But I want to bring you back to Ali example, right? And look at the police state behavior again, right? With respect to bad word and certain things. And by the way, I mean, as Ladyville police station yard last night, our policeman made a custom bad word. They like him, they lambaste me on my head side. That the bad word agent. And I thought, But what you have is, sorry, I almost lost my train of thought. What you have is that in the law, when I read it, and I want you good gentlemen pass it to me, it has, remember that fine and confinement increase for the list of people if you curse them or describe them as you feel they are and so on. You know what I was shocked at? That there seemed to be a lowering of the ability, a statutory fetter, a parliament passing a self-serving law, where if you are before the court and there is a contempt before the court, the judge of the Supreme Court is limited to confinement for 6 months. That, to my mind, is wicked. That is evil. Because then you know what? You can't place a judge of the Supreme Court at far lower ranking than a politician or anybody else listed there. And I will say something else, as my father always reminded me. We as officers of the court, if somebody is out there maligning a judge of the Supreme Court or certain things, the judge is not to descend into the arena out there. But we have a duty, if we are before the court, to protect the court in and outside of the court. And you know why we do it? Not because we personally like a judge or otherwise, because we are upholding the rule of law. And if we who are learned in the law and learning in the law don't carry out, those are conventions of the Constitution, and those are rights and responsibilities, status, rights, and obligations of attorneys at law, a whole law classes that with respect to legal practice at the And then in addition, you're imbued with the law. You know what? I was
Well,
happy.
Sharon, Sharon. Well,
Sorry.
I do have other sections of the program that I wanted to indulge in, and we will have to, like, on different constitutional nights, ask you to come in and further, because we can never learn too much, or we can
Yes.
actually learn, we can never learn enough, because these matters keep changing. And it's nice to have the knowledge, it's nice to have the input. And like I said, this particular program is about educating the public and giving the public what they are not being given by that bogus constitution reform commission or people's constitution commission education process. This is a supplement to that. So we are grateful to have all the input from all our panelists. I now go to Mr. Gregory Brackett for us. Could you play that thing again one more time, Greg, before you start your comment, please? Just as a refresher.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. But before I do that, I would like to say something
Go ahead, sir.
to the Belizean people at home and abroad. As far as my good friend and attorney, Ms. Fitz, go, I second her and exactly what she was saying. I would like to start by saying and speaking about the gross violation of not only our Constitution, but also international rule of law. The human rights concern over breach of the peace and the way governments use their power and breach the peace to extraordinarily go beyond and put its citizens in jeopardy. Breach of the peace has the potential to conflict with the European Convention on Human Rights and Fundamental Freedoms in 1950, including Article 5, 10, and 11, which protect the right to liberty and security, freedom of expression and assembly and association respectfully. Due to the loosely defined nature of breach of the peace and the wide powers afforded to those who intend to stop or prevent a breach, any use of the powers are closely examined by the court to ensure there has been no undue interference with human rights. And that is exactly what Ms. Pitt was speaking about when she was talking about her clients in police custody and their constitutional rights. I will even go further to state that we are in a time now where the police are using what is called malicious persecution against its citizens.
Mm-hmm.
And how this is being done, the police might pick up anyone, and what they do, without going to treat the evidence first, they will hold them unlawful detainment for 48 or even above hours and question them and interrogate them without doing the right procedure by the Constitution to go and investigate first.
Just
And
capricious
speaking about
victimization.
that, I would just like to say what Article 5 of the European Convention on Human Rights 1950 says. Everyone who is deprived of his liberty by arrest or detention shall be entitled to take proceedings by which The lawlessness of his detention shall be decided speedily by a court, and his release ordered if the detention is not lawful. Now, with me saying that, it goes back to what happened at the Ladyville police station with the young man and the woman police officer,
Mm-hmm.
that the council had to write a letter specifying to the police department about unlawful detention.
Mm-hmm.
The commissioner of police got up and tried to defend it, but I will say personally, this is not the first time that this has happened. The
Over and over and
police in
over.
our country has used this power on more than one
Mm-hmm.
occasion. And not to go back to the tape I played previously, I would prove it by playing a tape of something of the nature that happened also.
And when I was told why they were being held by the police, I thought I had to intervene on their behalf. The instruction that I received is that there was a young man who entered his apartment after there was some effort to evict him, took his items out of the apartment, and gave them to the two young ladies who were detained to hold for him. Again, I'm instructed that the owner of the apartment went to make a report to the police, and from that report, the police understood that the items were hers. In my mind, I was saying, then there is no reason for holding these young ladies, because if she doesn't own the property or the properties that were taken, she has no locus, she has no power or authority to bring any action against them, whether criminal or civil. So I went to see them, and then I understood what it really is. It's a case of unlawful detention and malicious prosecution, and the Constitution is clear on that. If any person unlawfully detains another, that person must pay the detained person compensation. So that is what my clients have instructed me that we're going to do. And it is very possible that the police might need to investigate this further and bring charges against the right people who have committed some sort of offense or crime. I have always tried to speak to the police when my clients are detained to see whether the detention is lawful or not. And you can't just come upon people, take them into custody without hearing a little their side of the story. As a matter of fact, there is a time period within which you can bring charges for any crime committed. So I have said to the police, there is no need to detain people, then investigate. Do your investigation, establish that a crime has been committed by the persons you want to detain, then detain them. And my instructions are that the police treated these two young ladies in a very rough way, the way they spoke to them, refusing to even listen to them. And this is the behavior of some police officers, because you have good officers. The way they approach people, the way they treat people, it is not human-like, it is not humanitarian. So, yes, I take an issue with how the police officers who detained the young ladies treated them based on the instructions I received. Yes, I take issue with it.
Thank you very much, Greg. What we have,
Back to you,
Want to
Mr.
give a
Chairman.
comment, a
well,
quick view,
yeah,
right? And
wait,
based on
Sharon,
experience.
Sharon, just a minute, please. What we have going on in our country right now, and probably for quite a while back, is a situation of abuse of power, both legal powers and illegal powers. Powers that are vested in the police department and ministers, and powers that are not vested in police department or ministers. What they're doing is wrong and strong in the process, abusing people who they don't think have a means of fighting back. And some of these people apparently get off on some kind of high in behaving like that. It is untenable for our government. I don't care whether POP, UDP, any kind of P whatsoever. The purpose of a government is not to suppress and oppress and take advantage of its citizenry. The people of any country in this world are entitled to policies of state from the people whom they put in powers to practice and carry out those policies of state on their behalf and for their well-being and the country's well-being. When you have rascals behaving the way these guys are behaving, and you have the higher ups them aiding and abetting them and closing an eye or pretending like they don't know and saying that well they don't know of any of these type of activities, when the whole general public, people all abroad know these things are happening, and these jackals who are actually receiving a salary to perform those functions are collecting that salary under false pretense and not doing their job. It's unbecoming and it's untenable. And just because they know we can't take away the powers from them immediately, they go around and they play their game and cover for each other. I'd like to go back to Mr. Wade, and then I'll come to you, Sharon, for a second round, right? We're running out of time, though. We have 25
Sadly,
minutes. Oh, man, 5 minutes.
Yes.
2 minutes, Mr. Wade, please.
Thank you. To cap that off, guys, it's real truth that the abuse of power and the way, we have a police state, right? And but that is after the fact that when they already drag innocent people through the mud and all that and cost them a whole lot of. I was arrested for theft, stealing my one tractor. They went on my farm, right? And I'll tell you, right? The police load up and they came and said, Mr. Wade, we can't arrest you because just do it. I said, man, you need to go and find out who that the owner of this tractor, either the lawful owner of the tractor. No, Mr. Wade, we arrest you first. Watch a one big thing with me and then guy. So they arrested me first. So I had to clear me through the whole thing. So I have to go to the court and prove to the court that this tractor belongs to Roody Wade, right?
Harassment.
Here is but after the fact, right? And it's a damn shame, big senior superintendent. He's now retired, Mr. Alvan Gentle, right? I don't know where the hell he gets his training from, right? What I'm trying to say, I was arrested for stealing my own property, right? So anyway, that's to show you the level of knuckleheads that we have, and I call them knuckleheads because they you just said, Leonard, they collect the taxpayers' money on a false pretense. They don't know what the damn hell they're doing to people and what they're subjecting people to. And I took it as a good Belizean. I didn't do the man nothing, right? As a good Belizean. On a law-abiding thing, I could have done otherwise, but I choose not to. I just let it play it out, right? I didn't do the man nothing, right? No, he passed me and I have to hang down the head because of his stupidity, right? Pass me this way and he hang down the head, they pass the next way, right? Well, I'm just showing, I'll say no more, but
thank you very much,
this
Mr.
is
Wade,
what goes on in this country, right?
I appreciate your contribution in that regard. Mr. Morrison, I'd like to give you 2 minutes. So we're running out of time. I'll give you 2 minutes, and then I'll go back to Greg for 2 minutes, and then I'll give Sharon the last 2 minutes, and that should be the closing of the show. I'll have to add another 5 minutes to the show in order for us to get there. And then I still had about 20 words that I wanted to read, but I don't know if I won't get my chance. But please, Mr. Morrison.
Yeah.
Any closing thoughts, sir?
Yeah. I as a person that just looks on and watch how law operates, having the experience more of living in the United States where it seems to work, but it doesn't always work, But at least there seem to be remedies to make things happen and to hold people accountable. And it doesn't matter who that individual is. And so for that, we're thankful. And what I look for and hope is that we build the mechanisms within our structure so that we can hold these people accountable, whether it be, sometimes it seems to me, and I don't know, it seems to me that the people in responsibility, like those police officers, it seems to me like probably they don't know their responsibility in truth. And so there seems to be a lack and an educational process that needs to take hold to sort of guide that. And
arrogance.
Think, yeah, and I think shows like this keeps the citizens of the country informed on what the limits of what those police officers' roles are, but all just the legal system and political system, but also what the individual responsibility is, and so it will help them to hold these individuals accountable and to challenge them when they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing.
Thank you very much, sir. That was very eloquent and gracious of you to uh, contribute those thoughts for show tonight. And I would like to go to Greg. Two
Thank you,
minutes,
Mr.
sir.
Chairman.
And then
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Greg, I just want to prep Spitz. Sharon,
Yes, sir.
I'm coming to you as soon as Greg finishes
Yes,
2 minutes. Then,
sure.
then you will get the last 2 minutes of the show. And if anything left over for me, then I could read me 20 words I had prepared. But
Well, you read first, sir, because
huh?
Go ahead. Thanks.
Okay, I just want to make Greg finally weighing in, no? Please, Greg.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
Again, as I said before, we are living in a police state. I mentioned that before with the authoritarian rule where instead of our government through its legislature makes law to bring peace and harmony in the community, they are making laws to silence the people. And they are using this bogus state of emergency to jeopardize lawful citizens. Look at the young man that the roof dropping on him at the Queen Street station. He was taken there to be investigated for murder. No, he was not charged with that murder, but because of the incident and he got injured, they changed it from investigation of a murder and took him up for 30 days. Look at the young man that was trying to protect his
Malicious
case.
and vindictive. Malicious
That
and
is what I'm
vindictive.
speaking
Without
when I
cause.
say malicious persecution. Because the police have a tendency when you're walking the street to drive up on you in the mobile. They ask you a question. If you refuse to answer, they tell you to get in without articulating a crime that you have committed. And I'm saying this to people. Do not help the police to bring a malicious charge on you. If they ask you to get in the mobile, ask them to articulate a crime and have them read that to you right away and tell you, I will charge you with so and so. Because the moment you encourage them and you get in the mobile for fear, you can end up at the police station for 48 hours with no charge at all, maliciously. I turn it back to you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Greg. And that was very lucid, sir, and very timely, critical information that people who are on the spot need to bear in mind and be conscious of. But one other comment on that is that the way our police are behaving, if you don't cooperate with them, they're of the opinion that they have a right to levy some trump up charge against you or instigate some kind of reaction between you and them that ends up with you being at the end of some kind of charge. No, I'm not saying
Mr.
it's correct,
Chairman,
but
if I may, Mr.
go ahead.
Chairman, if I
Go ahead.
may,
Go ahead.
I want to say this to the people at home and abroad. We the people, yes, most is living in poverty, and this happens to them. The first thing the comptroller will say is to go to BSP. I would want to say to the public, go to attorney and see if they can take your case pro bono. It is time that Belizean start to defund the police.
And, and,
Stop
and,
going to the PSB because nothing ever come out of it.
and
It's
try, we
time
need
to
to get some of these
start
people
to civilly
sued personally.
sue them.
Sue them personally as
Thank
well
you,
as sue
Mr.
the government.
Chairman.
Thank you very much, sir. You're welcome. And that's another very important point. I want to run to Ms. Spitz right now because I promised her 2 minutes, and I have to let her weigh in on the last thoughts for tonight's
Okay.
program.
I'll be quick, no? This constitutional law book I just pulled from the shelf, right? It's the address is 30 Leinster Gardens, London, double full stop 2, whatever that means. No? It's Mr. Golson's constitutional law book, right? And I just wanted to make a quick statement that I don't think I said in the past, right? The authors of the book, it's like what you'd call a seminal or one of the, the authority, world class, basically made a statement, but this is, I'll just read it, right? It is thus that in 1960, a document framed in 1787 remains in force with few important amendments as the Constitution of the United States of America. Remember, British Constitution strong, but I find it in one document where it's not written. But you'll have all these conventions which follow, and call it British way you want, but they want to resign before it appears that they bring dishonor to the office. So if that man may accused of sending flowers is some lady who caught his eye, he resigns. Anyway, so why I'm saying this is it's a strong illustration, Mr. Greg, you might know, and those of you Belizean Americans, you hear amendments 1, 2, 3, 4, fourth amendment, this, that amendment in the United States. But at the time this was written, there was almost 200 years with a few amendments. You preserve your Constitution, and although the American Constitution was written by the Federalists and so on, basically they took and included the rule of law and the common law in it. It's central, so even if somebody say America make up their own law, I could tell somebody when you want to put somebody at ease, when a foreigner is here from America and feel, I say, remember, same common law system. You were a colony of Britain. They never throw the babe with the bathwater, but I use this to say that constitutions are held together. Start to unravel. And then people were up. I don't know if they're up to any good. People at Belize, remember, be forewarned, hold on to what you got. And in addition, there's an ICJ thing looming. This is not time for the fool wrong with constitution.
Amen.
Strengthen it and not make them pretend that you're RIGHT it, because then they tamper with it, then they finagle with it.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Spitz, for your final closing.
Could I just say one thing, Mr. Brackett?
Go ahead, sir.
Well said there, Ms. Spitz.
I was just wondering because, as we look at the state of emergency that give them this extra police power, it means we also have to hold our legislature accountable because they're the one that enact that and it cause it to be implemented. So it's not just the police that are accountable here. There's a true way of holding accountability to our elected representatives.
The issue as to the police is how they are carrying out the mandate that they are given, whether that mandate is legal, constitutional, or whatever. The issue of the police that we're talking about is their individual, personal engendering of their own personal profile or psychological makeup with impunity as to how they carry out the laws that they're supposed to be carrying out. They are peace officer first and foremost. But they go in there and bully rape people because there's no accountability and nobody sue them personally.
Exactly.
And none of them have been made an example of
exactly
in the courts or out of the courts.
That's it right there.
I made an example of one of them out of the court. Mr. Golson is dead and gone, so he can't tell you how the case turned out. But I've given snippets of that story a few times before. But the bottom line is that we are also demanding accountability, as you would recall in the beginning of this show and in many other shows, from the Minister of Police. Even though he is against the SOE, he still put it out because the commissioner says that he wants it out because it helps him to keep control. And you shouldn't be using a bogus SOE to try and keep control when that bogus SOE is causing harm to the general public. And you're not using your existing police powers to go and arrest the criminals, whom you already know who they are.
I just want to say something quick, right? The police must be reminded, like I told the one today, he would be named in any constitutional suit for breach. When you take an action against the government, you have a 1-year statute of limitation, but you have the statute, Public Authorities Protection Act, which requires that you give 1 month minimum notice of intended action before you take it out, and you have to specify the cause of action. And I will say, for all matters we deal with over the decades with respect to police breach, you know that you're required to name the particular police officer. And then when you take the action, if they don't settle, it goes against the government of Belize. But the cause of action, you must name the particular, if you know, the particular officer.
And they're supposed to give you their name.
Yes.
And their badge number. Those are requirements under our policies of state. But to close off quickly, I'm in trouble, serious trouble now. I don't want to close on the show and wait before we close it out ourselves. Let me I just want to read these few words here. I'm not going to be too long. Cap 4, Belize Constitution, up. Part 3, Section 5, subsection 1. A person shall not be deprived of his personal liberty, save as, or in other words, only under the circumstances as may be authorized by a law. Quickly, I want to read 6 quickly. They are short. I'm just taking the opportunity because, okay, here, I got it. Section 6.1, all persons are equal before the law and are entitled without any discrimination to the equal protection of the law. And that's the closing for tonight. Thank you very much, my panelists, brothers and sisters. And, I think we did a hell of a good job tonight and everybody contributed positively. I would wish that people would get to review these shows, learn and understand something that will help our country to be better prepared to meet what's coming at us, because whether we like it or not, it's coming at us. God bless Belize and Belizeans at home and abroad. Good night. This was the 131st program of the Belize Affairs show, and we thank you, those who are tuning in and those who will be tuning in afterwards. I enlarged my screen so I don't have the ability quickly to see who are the people that were making comments were. I'll deal with those in-house house cleaning business when the show is closed. Let me quickly do something else here so I could get back in the background and deal with what I need to deal with. We're gone.